So today what I will be doing, I will be continuing with the first unit in that origin of life. This origin of life has got even places which you have to study on taxonomy and systematics. So in this particular unit you have to study taxonomy as well as origin of life as well as biological species concept. So it's just a hybrid fusion area. So what we will be talking today about is, first we will talk about taxonomy hierarchy. What is taxonomic hierarchy? So with this I will start presenting my screen. So the first thing which we will be studying is what is taxonomic hierarchy in biological classification. By hierarchy you mean that it is a level. So you have a bottom level, on top of that you have an upper level, on top of that you have another level, on top of that you have another level. So one level comes on top of each one another. So that is a hierarchy. On the top you have a boss, below the boss you have certain managers, below the managers you have sub managers, below them you have further lower managers. You have lower managers. So all these managers and below them is the workers. Similarly, on you can find the lowest level is species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, domain, and on the topmost part you have life. Life is present on the topmost part. So all these are the levels of hierarchy. So taxonomic hierarchy, it is the arrangement of various categories in successive levels of the biological classification. So when you classify an organism, you give them certain levels. On the top it's a living organism, so life. Below life you give them domain. Below the domain you give them kingdom. Below kingdom you give them phylum. Below phylum you give them class. Below class you give them order. Below order you give them family. Below family you give them genus name. Then you give them species name. So in all essentially you don't study too much about this two hierarchy. So these hierarchy, these 7 hierarchy, that is kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus and species. They are the 7 main hierarchy. You can divide them into sub kingdom, you can divide them into sub phylum, you can divide the class into subclass. You can do it, but the main 7 main steps are these 7 below the kingdom. Kingdom Animalia, kingdom Planta. In kingdom Animalia you have phylum Arthropoda, phylum Mollusca, phylum Chordata, all these things. Say for example in phylum Mollusca you have several classes are present. Then, for example, one of the say for example annelid, a phylum annelids. You have the oligochaetes, you have the polychaetes, you have the hirudinarians class, different classes. So you break up, you go below. Now, this type of a hierarchy was introduced by Carlos Linnaeus. So these are the taxonomic category. One category, kingdom is a category, phylum is a category, class is a category, order is a classic category, family is a category, genus is a category, species is a category. So these are all categories. So these categories was introduced by Linnaeus, and therefore they are known as the Linnaean hierarchy. So it is defined as sequence of categories in a decreasing or increasing order from kingdom to species and vice versa. So increasing is from species to genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom. This is increasing, and decreasing from kingdom to phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. This is decreasing. So this is a Linnaean hierarchy. So what is the species? Species is the lowest level of classification, and it shows the high level of similarities among organisms. One species can be distinguished from the other closely related species based on distinct differences in morphology. Basically, first what you look is the difference. One species is different from another species in morphology. Man is separate from chimpanzees because they look different from outside. Therefore, they are different species. The next is genus. The example which they gave in species is Plasmodium vivax, which causes the common benign malaria, and the other is the Plasmodium falciparum, which causes the malignant malaria. So both are malaria causing parasite, but their effect is different. One, malignant malaria is lethal malaria. It is very difficult to survive malignant malaria, but benign malaria you can survive. But they are the members of the same genus. So the genus name is Plasmodium, species name is vivax or falciparum. So whenever you are in binomial nomenclature, binomial in binomial nomenclature, always the generic name is written first. For example, Plasmodium, the P is capital, Plasmodium. This is Plasmodium, and the species name is vivax. VIVAX, Plasmodium vivax. Always remember this V, the species name starts with a small letter, and when you are writing by hand, you underline it. Underline Plasmodium or underline vivax. If you don't, your marks will be deducted 0. You are supposed to underline Plasmodium vivax. If you are typing, it should be written in italics. That is, this is italics. So don't forget these things. So Plasmodium is the genus name. This taxonomic group composes of multiple species which have similar characteristics but different from that of species from other genus. So above the species come the genus. Example, dog and wolf. Wolf is Canis lupus and dog is Canis familiaris. But both have the same genus, so they belong to the same genus. So the next category is that of the family. This category of taxonomy comprises of a number of genus which share some similarities among themselves. For example, Panthera or the genus Panthera, lions, tigers, Pantherus leo, Pantherus tigris, they belong to these are lion and tiger. So the genus is Panthera, and the genus of the cat, Felis. So they are the cat. They belong to family of large cats. You call them family. So tigers and cats, they are in the same family. So जिस तरह से मतलब बिल्ली को शेर के मौसी कहा जाता है, that is because they belong to the same family. The family is family Felidae. This is very important to remember. They belong to the family Felidae, lions and tigers, but they belong to different species. After family comes, or before, above, order. The classification starting from order has less similarities. So in order you have less similarities. For example, they are the most similarities are in species, then followed by genus. Family, you have even less similarities. In order, even more less similarities. You are broadening it. So like for example, you give the order Carnivora. Carnivora, give the order Carnivora. Carnivora includes Canidae, that is the order of dogs, Canis familiaris, and Felidae, like Felis domestica, cats. So dogs and cats together they are placed because they eat meat. They have carnivorous. They are carnivorous. They eat meat, so they have been placed in the same category, same order, and therefore it is order. The similarity between dogs and cats is less. Next, you come across class. A group of orders which share a few similarities from a class. It goes even broader. You have even lesser similarities. For example, primates, humans, we are primates, monkeys, humans, they, and as well as dogs and cats, they are belonging to the class Mammalia because they have got hairs over their body, and the females have breast to feed young ones milk, presence of mammary glands. Therefore they are belong to the class Mammalia. Apart from a dog is different, a primate is different, horse is different, but they are all mammals. Then you have phylum. This is the next level of classification. For example, fishes, phylum you have reptiles, aves, amphibians. They are all placed together under phylum Chordata, because when they were embryo they had a notochord on their back, so they belong to the phylum Chordata. Above that is the kingdom, the highest. They are animals, plants, fungi, protists, monerans. So this is how, what do you mean by a taxonomic hierarchy? Now the next thing which you have to study is what is the systematic process how do you do a classification? The first step is 5 interdependent but distinct steps. The taxa to be classified are chosen. You know taxa? A taxa is a level. It can be phylum, it can be class, it can be order. They are all taxa or categories. The taxa to be classified are chosen. The characteristic to provide evidence for relationship are chosen. Now, for example, in dog and cat, you want to put them under order Carnivora. So you have to choose a characteristic on the basis of which they are similar. That is, both of them eat meat, and therefore they are carnivorous. They don't. They are supposed to eat meat. A carnivorous teeth is elongated, so they belong to the order Carnivora. So the characteristic is that they eat flesh. The characteristics are analyzed to reconstruct the relationship among the taxa in the form of a tree. Now, dogs and cats, they are belong to the same order, but then you have to show a relationship. Definitely they had dogs and cat had a common ancestor from which they separated. This became dogs and this became cats. They became separate. So this is known as a tree, a phylogenetic trees, and it is showing the relationship between dog and cat, D and C. Then the tree is translated into a formal classification system so that it can be communicated and used by other scientists. So you have to communicate it with other scientists. So this is known as the systematic process. Then the tree is used to test various hypotheses about the process of evolution in the group. You start the tree, dogs and cats similar. Maybe say you take a dog, cat, and you take a monkey or man. You start to say which is close to which, whether dog is close to cat or dog is close to man. With that you make a relationship. You can make a relationship with something like this, that man is far away from cat and dog. Cat and dog are more closer. You can also test the thing that dog and man are very close on the basis of their characteristics. So this is dog and man, and from a common character you have here you place cat. So cat and dog are far away, you place man. So this is one hypothesis, whether this is right or whether this is right. Then you check morphological characteristics. You check characteristics of dogs, check characteristics of cats, check characteristics of man. From the basis more similar characteristics between dog and cat, so they are placed, they are closer together. Man is much farther, so this hypothesis is taken and this is rejected. So this is how these characteristics are chosen. What is more closer together? You see the number of more similar characteristics, the closer they are. Farther away, they are far away from each other, and you make a relationship like this. For example, you make a relationship like this. You can make this relationship in a different manner. You can make it like this. Say for example, man and cat are similar and dog is different. This is another hypothesis. This is dog, cat and man. So these are two hypotheses. These are two of many hypotheses. This is more similar because dogs and cats have got more similar characteristics, so they are placed more close to each other. So this is how this is the fifth step of systematic process. So systematic provides the framework or classification by which other biologics communicate information about organisms. Systematics and its phylogenetic tree, the cladogram which in the first class I had explained, they provide the basis of evolutionary interpretation. The phylogenetic tree and the corresponding classification predicts properties of newly discovered or poorly known organism. Next comes the international, this we will discuss in the next class. Now we will go to the small bit on the topic which I would like to talk about today. I have not stopped this here. Let's go to this. So what is the biological species concept? The biological species concept. How do you distinguish between two species? The biological species concept was given by Ernst Mayr, the book of which I suggested you people to buy. You can buy it on Amazon, you can buy it on any local bookstore, from anywhere you want. I had sent it in the group, the principles of zoological nomenclature, principles of systematic zoology. This book by Ernst Mayr and Ashlock. Its price is very cheap. It's 240 rupees, the Indian edition. So it was given by the biologist Ernst Mayr. The biological species concept, it states that a species is a group of actually or potentially interbreeding natural populations which are reproductively isolated from other such groups. One word which he used over here was reproductive isolation. That is, they cannot mate with one another if they are reproductively isolated. One example is, you see this bird and this bird. Both look more or less the same. The left picture is that of the western meadowlark. This is the western meadowlark. And this is the picture of the eastern meadowlark. They look the same, they sing in the same manner, but they cannot mate with each other. A male of this species cannot mate with the female of this species. So they are reproductively isolated. They look the same, they sing the same, lot of similar. You see the pictures, they look absolutely same. But you place them together side by side, they cannot mate with each other. They will have no offspring. If, for example, a human being cannot mate with a monkey. A human being has to mate only with another human beings. They cannot reproduce. Only a male and female human species, they can mate with each other and they will have a baby. Even the same case with dogs. Only a male dog and a female dog can mate with each other and you have puppies. Similar with the cats. A cat and a lion cannot mate with each other. They are reproductively isolated. This is, there are certain exceptions. More closer, like a donkey and a horse, they can mate with each other, but they are fertile. Their offspring will not be fertile, and you know them as mules. So the mule stops in that generation. The mule cannot mate and have a third generation. So जिसे कहते हैं खच्चर. Khachar is a mule. It's a cross between a donkey and a horse, a male donkey and a female horse. You have a mule. So mules are sterile. They cannot have offspring. So they do lot of hard work. If you have a mule, you can have a lot of hard work. So this is commercially where it is important, so it is done. But horse and uh, donkey, they belong to the same genus, but they can mate, but their offspring is not fertile. The generic name is Ecus calibus horse, and donkeys, I don't remember, another Ecus something. So similarly in this western meadowlark, Sternella neglecta is the western meadowlark, and the eastern meadowlark is Sternella magna. So magna is the species name, neglecta is is another species name. They are different from each other. Similar, the generic name is Sternella. Both the genus, they belong to the same genus, but the species are separate. Why are they separate? Because they cannot mate with each other. So this is the biological species concept, the concept of reproductive isolation. So this this part, from this part we go to another part. So according to the biological species concept, groups of actually or potentially interbreeding natural populations which are reproductively isolated from each other are biological species. They don't mate with each other. So this is one of the best definitions of how to define a species. Now another species concept from this originates, and that is the evolutionary species concept. In the biological species concept, there is a drawback. How do you define a biological how do you define your ancestor? Can you mate with your ancestor and have fertile offsprings? Ancestor means, say, go back 100 generations back, say, for example. In the 2000th century, maybe in the time of Jesus Christ, you go back to the time of Jesus Christ. If you have a time machine, you travel back, and then can you mate with somebody and have a children? Is it possible? Say you go back. So if you can, will you be able to have? Because evolution has taken place. You don't know the answer, but you know that your ancestor, that they are your ancestors, that people living during the time of Jesus Christ, they had some values which you still follow today. But something like 2000 years have passed. You don't know biologically if they are all dead. So you really don't know biologically if you mate with them, you'll have fertile offspring or not. 1 or 2 or 3 generations mating takes place, the fertile offspring is produced. But if you go back several generations, is it possible? Very difficult. In Drosophila melanogaster, that's the common fruit fly. Basically from 1910, Thomas Hunt Morgan was a geneticist. He worked on Drosophila melanogaster. And now this Drosophila melanogaster, he crossed them and did lots of experiments, and the whole basis of genetics was laid by the work of Morgan and his students. But 100 years later, the in Morgan's lab, the Drosophila which he cultivated or he kept, they bred with each other, and then the mutations were isolated. So they were all lab species. From one lab, all the Drosophila were transported all over the world. So their children were transported. So their children, their children, their children. So this came from the same stock. 100 years later, they mated with each other. They had fertile offsprings and everything. Now, strangely enough, 100 years later, the one scientist had this idea. What he did, he took some wild type Drosophila, wild Drosophila melanogaster. That's occurring outside, not in the laboratory strain. Because all they are studying in the laboratory, that those were crossed and recrossed, and they had offsprings all over the world. And now they They come and they cross it with something with the outside, Drosophila melanogaster, which occurs in nature. Surprisingly, when one male of, say, maybe the wild type male was crossed with a lab female, the funny part was that the offspring which came, they were sterile. Slowly you can say that they are not having they are getting reproductively isolated. Very soon the lab species and the wild type species, they will very soon, means maybe another 100 200 years, they will not be able to mate with each other. They'll become a new species of Drosophila itself. So what do you say about human beings, the people living during the time, the early man which you have studied, the prehistoric man, or even the man living during Jesus Christ? Are they of the same species? To answer this question, the biological species concept is unable to answer whether they belong to the same species or not. This gave rise to another species concept that is known as the evolution. I was talking about biological species concept, that if you go several generations back, you cannot say whether they belong to the same species or not. So for to explain this concept, what you needed was to explain this concept. What you need was a concept which called evolutionary species concept. And now I will explain what is the evolutionary species concept. Just hold on a moment. I will open the files. It all got closed. Okay, let me present my screen. So The evolutionary species concept, it was given by Simpson in 1951. They define evolutionary species concept as an evolutionary species is a lineage evolving separately from others with its own unitary evolutionary role and tendencies. It was initially developed to define fossil species. So, this is an ancestor. It is evolving into another one. This becomes more changes are coming, more changes are coming, till the final changes are coming. So this whole lineage is one species. So according to evolutionary species, prehistoric man, even before prehistoric man, if what was there, they all belong to the same evolutionary species. It is very useful in the classification of horses. In the evolutionary classification of horses, you have several wonderful record of fossils present, from one like Merychippus, Eohippus to the current Icus. So the wonderful evolution, you have wonderful fossil records. So all of them are classified under horse. So they belong to the same evolutionary species. Even they are dead and fossils, but they are placed under the same evolutionary species. So one line, this is the evolution of horse, this is the evolution of mammals. So mammals, if you consider what are the things, you have the early man, before that Neanderthal man, Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all of them, they are belong to the same evolutionary species. This was used to classify fossils. So with this, I will actually end my class today. I will end my class today, and I intend to take the class on Wednesday. If there are any changes, I will let you know. So do you people have any questions? अगर कोई सवाल है तो पूछ सकते हो.
नहीं सर, कोई सवाल नहीं.
Okay, okay, thank you. Then I stop my class over here. We will meet on Wednesday. I will tell you the time on the WhatsApp group.
ओके सर.
Okay.